If you're into videos about supernatural phenomena, unsolved mysteries, and true crime, you've come to the right channel. We upload new videos 2 to 3 times a week, so if this sounds like the content you enjoy, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss any of our weekly uploads. Now, let's dive into the video. The sun had just begun to dip behind the jagged peaks of the Hindu Kush Mountains, casting a crimson hue over the desolate Afghan landscape. A unit of U.S. Special Forces soldiers, rugged and battle-hardened, moved cautiously through the rocky terrain. Their mission was simple but deadly: locate a missing squad that had vanished somewhere in the mountains near Kandahar. As with many operations in this unforgiving land, the details were murky. No distress signals had been received, no signs of an ambush, no bodies, just the haunting silence of the Afghan wilderness. Their boots crunched over the loose gravel, the dry wind whipping up clouds of dust that stung their faces. The atmosphere was thick with tension, a weight that none of the men spoke about but all felt. The region was known for its danger, not only from insurgents but from something older, more primal. The locals, though quiet, sometimes spoke of strange things that lurked in the mountains. But the soldiers dismissed such tales, chalking them up to superstition. After all, war zones often birthed wild stories to fill the gaps in reality. As they pressed on, the terrain grew more challenging. Steep cliffs rose on either side, casting long shadows over their path. Radios remained silent. A few uneasy glances were exchanged among the soldiers, though they remained professional, determined to bring their comrades home. When they reached a small, hidden valley, they found the first clue: a trail of military gear scattered on the ground. Helmets, rifles, and torn packs lay abandoned at the entrance of a dark cave. But no signs of life, no bodies. "Where the hell did they go?" whispered one of the soldiers, his voice barely audible over the wind. The captain, a grizzled man with years of combat experience, frowned, eyes narrowing as he scanned the area. "Stay focused," he said sharply. "Form up. We're going in." The team moved cautiously toward the cave, their weapons raised, flashlights cutting through the shadows. The entrance loomed in front of them, a gaping maw of darkness. Inside, the air was thick and fetid, smelling of decay. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, but their training took over as they pushed deeper into the cave, the silence pressing down on them like a weight. The cave's narrow passage soon opened into a larger chamber, and that's when they saw it. Massive bones, broken and scattered, lay strewn across the floor, mixed with the remains of old decayed weapons and tattered pieces of what looked like ancient leather armor. But the most unsettling sight was the human remains, bones that had clearly been gnawed on. A chill ran down the spine of every man in the team. "What the hell happened here?" one soldier whispered, his voice trembling despite his attempt to stay composed. Suddenly, the ground seemed to vibrate beneath their feet, as though something enormous was moving deep within the cave. A low, rumbling growl echoed through the chamber, freezing the blood in their veins. The captain held up a hand, signaling for the team to hold their positions. "Eyes sharp. We're not alone," he said quietly. Then, without warning, a massive figure emerged from the shadows. The soldiers barely had time to react before they were confronted by a towering creature. At least 12 feet tall, with skin as tough as stone and flaming red hair that cascaded down its shoulders. Its eyes gleamed with a savage intelligence, and it held a massive spear, the tip gleaming wickedly in the faint light of their flashlights. The creature moved with terrifying speed for something so large, and before anyone could fire, it lunged, impaling one of the soldiers with a single brutal thrust. The scream of the soldier echoed through the cave as his comrades unleashed a torrent of gunfire. M4 carbines roared to life, and the sound of automatic fire filled the air, drowning out the frantic shouts of the men. But the giant was not easily brought down. It shrugged off the initial hail of bullets, its massive form almost impervious to their weapons. It swung its spear with devastating force, smashing one soldier against the cave wall like a rag doll. The rest of the team scrambled for cover, firing wildly as the giant advanced. The creature seemed unstoppable, a force of nature bent on destruction. But the soldiers were trained for moments like this. Amid the chaos, one of them pulled out an M107 Barrett sniper rifle, a weapon powerful enough to pierce through armored vehicles. The soldier aimed and squeezed the trigger. The .50 caliber round tore through the air, hitting the giant square in the chest. The creature staggered, a pained roar escaping its lips. Another round hit, and then another, until finally, after what felt like an eternity, the giant collapsed to the ground, its body shaking the very earth as it fell. The cave was silent once more, the only sound the ragged breathing of the surviving soldiers. They approached the giant's body cautiously, guns still trained on it in case it somehow rose again. Up close, the creature was even more horrifying. It was humanoid, but grotesquely distorted. Its massive hands had 6 fingers, and its feet 6 toes. Its skin, a leathery gray, was covered in scars and strange symbols that none of the soldiers could recognize. Its eyes, now lifeless, stared blankly up at the cave's ceiling. The captain, still catching his breath, radioed in for extraction. "We've got something here. Something big." "Get a chopper ready," he said, his voice barely hiding the shock of what they'd just encountered. Soon, the distant thrum of a Chinook helicopter's rotors echoed through the valley as it descended to their position. The soldiers struggled to lift the giant's body, which weighed far more than they had anticipated. It took several men to haul it into the helicopter, its sheer size dwarfing everything around it. Once secured, the Chinook lifted off, heading toward a destination none of the soldiers were privy to. Back at the base, the soldiers were immediately debriefed. Every man was ordered to sign a non-disclosure agreement, their silence demanded by the highest levels of command. What they had encountered in the mountains of Kandahar was not something that could be made public. They were told it was classified, never to speak of it again. But the memory of that day haunted them. The image of the giant, its sheer size, its unnatural features, was burned into their minds. It didn't help that the body had been whisked away to some unknown location, leaving them with nothing but questions. What was it? Where did it come from? And more disturbingly, were there others? Over the years, the story of the Kandahar giant slowly leaked out, whispered among soldiers who had served in Afghanistan. Some claimed to have heard similar tales from other units, stories of strange creatures lurking in the mountains, remnants of a time long forgotten. Theories began to swirl, ranging from ancient cryptids to the biblical Nephilim, giants said to be the offspring of angels and humans. Conspiracy theorists latched onto the story, weaving it into a tapestry of government cover-ups and hidden truths. They argued that the giant was proof of an ancient race that had survived in the remote regions of the world, kept hidden from the public by governments afraid of the implications. Some even suggested that these giants had ties to extraterrestrial visitors, remnants of a forgotten civilization that had once ruled the earth. But for the soldiers who had been there, it wasn't about conspiracy theories or biblical prophecy. It was about survival. They had faced something unimaginable, something that defied explanation. And while the official reports would never mention the giant, while the military would deny any knowledge of such an encounter, the men who were there knew the truth. As time passed, many of the soldiers left the military, returning to civilian life. But the memory of that fateful day in the mountains stayed with them. They knew that what they had seen was real, and though they had been sworn to secrecy, some felt the weight of that truth too heavy to bear in silence. The giant of Kandahar became a legend, a story passed on through hushed conversations, fueled by speculation and wonder. Was it just a hallucination born of the stress of war, or was it a glimpse into something far more ancient, far more dangerous, lurking in the remote corners of the world? Whatever the answer, the legend endures. And somewhere, in a classified location, the body of the giant, massive, mysterious, and undeniably real, lies hidden, waiting for the day when the truth will finally come to light.